right, everybody, good morning to my American friends. Good evening to my European friends. If you're Australia and New Zealand, still up for this. Hope you can get back to sleep at some point soon. Had a good interview this morning, my time, with Sean Pinner. Been following him a long time. British soldier, Ukrainian soldier. Been stabbed, electrocuted. Dealt with a lot defending Ukraine in the early days of 2022. So I'd recommend that as a good interview to just see a little bit of the differences of being captured in the Russian system. But we talked about a lot, and he's really doing a lot of good work for Ukraine. I promised, though, I'd do an econ stream today. I wanted to do one with a lot of money supply data because I've been asked about that a lot recently. I don't have it quite yet. Hopefully tomorrow. I want to show this one as well. Nerves are increasing as the price drops this third time, right? Price has nothing to do with the rainbow. Price is just price for your information. Okay, that's an orange. The rainbow has everything to do with the price to sales ratio, or the PSR. You can see when we boom and when we top, the PSR has always been above the 9, right? The 90th percentile, as I do. In this case, it's 2.5x the power trend, right? This also follows a power trend. Overall, it's this. It's not a amazing R squared compared to the price chart or the gold chart, Bitcoin price in gold, but it's working decently. And just to update, as we go down here, this PSR is going down. Again, we've never been above the 9 on a lot of these charts this cycle. Doesn't mean we have to go above the 9. But what happens here is, as price goes down, the value of the block reward goes down, the value of fees goes down in dollar terms. Of course, it's all Bitcoin, but in dollar terms, it goes down. And then how many times the market cap will divide into that revenue on a trailing 12-month basis is this multiple, okay? So when you get really ahead of yourselves relative to the trend, you'll get above the 9. Getting below the 0 is quite rare. Getting below the 10 or the 1, 10th percentile. I couldn't find any buttons, by the way, with 10. It's just gonna have to work on that more. It's less rare. It still seems like a secular bull, but I know people are super worried, and all I can tell you is the relative risk of where we stand. So in the course of a few weeks, again, this has nothing to do with the rainbow. This is just price for reference. But in the course of a few weeks, right, we were 124K here just a month and a half ago. Now we're 91. And the PSR itself, which is the black B there, I know it's hard to see with all the different rainbow bands. It's 106 at the moment. 106, that's exactly the median, 50th percentile. Hello, Anders. Thank you. Thank you very much for watching. Super important, super brave guy. So they need more over there, and I understand that. I wanted to ask him about donations in Bitcoin, and I forgot. We'll have him back on though. It's always good to talk to someone, and it's great to talk to Ukrainians, and I need to talk to more of them as well. But when you talk to someone whose English is their native tongue, that's also helpful, I think. So people are predicting a lot of doom right here. Personally, I don't see it. All right, here's the overall trend line. All right, we're moving up into what will go out on this trend. It's volatile. We went from being in the 80th percentile in the summer and even a month ago. Or actually, no, this is also important to show. So as we had this sort of retracement from the 120s earlier in the summer, later in the summer it started to go down to 110. There's a lot of softness here, and then it went back up start of October, and then boom, down. You'll see the PSRs also takes time to recover. When it's all said and done, will we look back at this as the top? One never knows, but as a lot of people have been saying, it's very hard for me to imagine we draw down to 50, 60, 70, 80 maybe. Although it's also true, when price goes down, and there's plenty of Bitcoin treasury companies, those that made big bets on price staying high for a while, their liquidity ratios deteriorate, and they can deteriorate fast. So you can start breaking covenants with your lenders. You can get called, sort of a Nakamoto type situation. And the liquidity trap can catch you. Yeah, he really is. For the new listeners, I rotate often between free world speak, geopolitical stuff, Ukraine, and also Bitcoin. I would encourage you really to watch that interview with Sean that I did this morning. He's really, really good dude, and has gone native. Lives in Dnipro, which is, hopefully not going to be, but could very well be a front town years from now. But we talk about Pokrovsk. We talk about Ukraine's resilience. I need to show this in Grivna. Actually, I've been doing different currencies. I could do Ukrainian Grivna. All right, we continue to go down on the gold chart. As usual, why don't I pick that up? I should pick it up. Let me refresh. It should have a gold ounce for today. Let's go back to dollar. All right, this is the power curve. This is the main chart. A lot of different indicators, but we'll stick with these. People trying to use these bands as different guides. At least I've seen some of the power law crew talk about that. With my drawings, again, we're getting close to the median, just like the other chart. Right? 91K, when I pulled this in, the median is 93K. Trend is 120. All right, so we're 0.8x the trend. 0.8x actually occurs 50% of the time. So we're smack dab in the middle. In what to me appears clearly a secular bull. But a lot of people are saying no. That this could have been it. That we go down. Plenty of people are saying we return upwards as well. Another thing, hopefully next week I'll get some more derivative stuff. You can check out James's site. He's got a lot of good derivatives data. But I'll get it as well. Tidal wave still calm. Remember in July we had this rare one where we actually had some sellers in a greater than 10-year cohort. 84,000 Bitcoin. I know I don't have the price on this, but usually when the shorter terms they start hodling and then they go down, and they could go down after the top in the price. So here you see price topped in early December, mid-December 2017. All right, so you see the six to 12 month here. Started to top, same in 2021. Remember we had the double top. But again, this is, well, nothing crazy if you go to the 6 months. Let's just look at the 6 months to not make this too complicated. This is everything under a year. Hodlers under a year. Percentage of 100. Just building up normally. Bit of a sharp build for the 3 to 6 months, notice. Actually, I guess that's not the case. It's for all of them, but yeah, compounds itself, but doesn't scream top. I'm curious what you guys are doing. Anybody buying calls at these levels? You know, you can use the power curve. Just use IBIT. Divide the Bitcoin price by however many shares are in IBIT, which I don't have offhand, I forget, but you can use the power curve for calls. There's not as fancy a rainbow like this on my website, but you do have the power curve. So you can just estimate out. It's one strategy, for example. If you do think the price will rebound or be much higher, you can, you know, use options to perhaps get more upside than just betting on Bitcoin. But over the long term, we have this nice power curve. going to talk to Stephen Pernod, Money or Debt, handle Money or Debt on Friday. So that'll be fun. MIT trained physicist, super strong pedigree. And I think it'll be very interesting to talk to him about some of the things that I talked to you guys about, like how far this power curve can keep going in a world of exponentially growing money supply, debt, GDP, everything else. Curious to hear what you guys are thinking. Sentiment is very negative. Very, very negative. Get some other ones pulled up here. Just 1 second. This is a variation of the HODL wave. Market cap over realized price for everybody holding within 155 days. You know, you can make trend lines on anything, but I've decided to make these as a multiple of the overall average. Right, so spent output profit ratio. It's just price or market cap divided by the realized price last time the coin moved. When short-term hodlers are really profiting, right, as in this case, when the SOPR was 2.4, 2.2x, right, it's a good sign of a top. Now, at the moment, it's a 14% loss. Is the black line. Not this. Sorry, not that, but this. So you see the price, see the realized price. 14% down. And this is a couple days ago, but same deal. Even during this big drawdown of 2021, price went back to 30 grand from 60 grand, over 60 grand. All right. This number came down to 0.72x. 0.72. So we haven't gotten that low, but we are lower than we have ever been during this secular bull. Or right about at the, you got to 0.84 here, 0.84 there. And there we did get 0.84 right there. Do we bounce? It's an interesting question. Hello, Jimmy. Definitely does. Probably as of, I don't have this updated the last couple days, but it is the lowest now. I'm sure it's dipped even lower because this is as of 95K price. So yeah. Yep. I think we still got to look at ETFs. Got to look at the whole market. Wall Street is certainly loving this. Tend to agree with you, Anders. This remains one of the more interesting ones. Did it update? There it did. I don't know why. Too much data, guys. So we're now at 22.25 ounces of gold per one Bitcoin, getting very close to the 10th percentile. I know I promised you that I'd have between the 10th and the 0th percentile, which is all the way down here. I don't have it yet, but I'll get it. It's just extremely cheap. Statistically, as cheap as it's ever been in terms of gold. If you are looking at this from the perspective of a gold bug, very rare has Bitcoin been cheaper than it is right now. And yet, it's still over 2 times more expensive than it was in 2022. . I'll try to pick out a few other. All right, this is very similar to the SOPR. This is the using all the HODL waves. Um, we just looked at numbers that's very similar to this, 3 to 6 month MVRV. All right, which is all the way down here. Interesting one was the 4 to 5 year coins. They really sold down at the end of last year. Five to 7 year, here's price. 5 to 7 years still well in profit. $11.2x. The realized value. But all the other ones are looking pretty weak. Weak hands. To the point where you wonder how weak can it go, right? I know it's hard to see all these lines, but I'm trying to just show you the lowest days, which were actually here, end of 2022. You can kind of see the capitulation, put price on. The capitulation here. Because remember, this will go down both as when the price goes down, but also when some of those UTXs are old UTXOs are destroyed. So very, very low levels here. Are we as low now? No. But pretty close. Still plenty higher on the weighted average, which is the total. That's the MVRV. And the point is, obviously, as the price is going up, profit goes up and most people start hodling. So if we assume that the crowd or the herd could be wrong, lots of capitulation here. Perhaps some of these come up. Obviously, a great sign is when the price just, shoots back above realized price. We're still well within the window where we could trade sideways for, a month or two and then shoot back above. But if it starts to be, 2, 3 months and we haven't shot back above, then it starts to look like a secular bear. So notice, again, I'm now looking at this line, right? So it can get, when this was just a dip, can get pretty low overall, 0.66. But then it can take a long time during a secular bear to even hit that again. And you need to not necessarily look at the ratio, but look at the overall trend of price versus the green line. But still, looking at here, I mean, it's, this is very much looking like a, 50 versus 200-day moving average sort of thing. We're still fighting. And if price bumps up, again, it's a good sign. So I wanted to talk about this one. David asked, this is obviously a very, I'm not a fan too much of these multiples because, first of all, I presume he's talking about US M1. It's not just the story of the US. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of these metrics where they sort of stagger, or they take the, 2 weeks or 8 weeks staggered from M2. And again, M2 is not the whole money supply. You got to get up to M3. What is for sure is that the base money supply, and I'll have more update on this tomorrow, updating for the third quarter still. It takes time. The base is quite low, and Bitcoin can do well in an up or down monetary base environment. So people talk a lot about how QT is ending. All right, but there's a couple other things going on. First of all these currencies have been losing value against the dollar. All right, so Chinese yuan has been holding okay, but it's also been growing, even perhaps a little bit more than you can see here. It is true that the dollar overall balance sheet of the Federal Reserve has gone down. But remember, the monetary base is only the physical currency plus bank reserves. It's been still, you'd say it's 6 trillion, 6.4 trillion here in 2021. Now it's 5.75, and it's going to start going up next month. Euro, it is down, but it's also losing value as well against the dollar. It is down. Japanese losing value against the dollar. Certainly not that much. But anyway, you put it all together, as well as the rest of the world. It's been sideways to down, it's true, in native units. But a lot of this decrease over the last 5 years is because those currencies lose value against the dollar. It's sort of one of these harder to visualize things. But again, worldwide, they always print, right? So worldwide, like for example here, I need to just have the Bitcoin price on here. But notice the green. The Federal Reserve was not printing all during this period, okay? And it is true that Bitcoin topped here. And then worldwide it is growing, all right? And Bitcoin topped here in 2017, but the Federal Reserve wasn't printing. It was flat. It coincided with a big money print here. But then again, Bitcoin has been growing over the last 2 years, faster than gold over the last 2 to 3 years. And the global money supply is going down. So Bitcoin can go up when the money supply goes down. It remains to me my main thesis that 90% of the price action is nothing to do with any of this, but more to do with this and this. Would still be happier days if we could boost ourselves above this black line, because that bodes well better for the future expectations. But we're still at extremely, robust statistical levels around this regression trend line, 96% R squared. So that's why I keep harping on this, and I do. Raul Paul just keeps. This is who we're going to have on Friday. Speak with Steven. Bitcoin's going to explode like a rocket ship in the next 45 days. It might. Steven says I like rocket ships that do not explode. I follow long-term power law trajectory, not unstable exponential explosions. Perfectly said. Perfectly said right there. And again, I keep harping on this, but if you're nervous, read this that Sminston put together. We talked about it. I was traveling. He was at the desk working. You could buy it 20% cheaper, 20% more expensive. See how it grows on the median power law. You could also sell 10% of your balance every year for 10 years, and you come up with these values. All right? This is just one Bitcoin. The idea is buying one Bitcoin at whatever price. Pick your price. Today's price, this is a couple days ago, right? This was 2 days ago he posted. But by today's price, 20% cheaper, 20% more expensive as far as what you're going to be valued at next year according to the median trend. And then those same median minus 20, median plus 20, those same things here. So in the worst case, 430,000. And that's like taking a dividend 10% a year. Also bake that in. He didn't put that in any of the charts, but we then projected Bitcoin 10 years out using the median power law trend and had a simulated investor in each scenario withdraw 10% of their holdings each year. Right? If you did not withdraw, then it's more or less this. I think I showed yesterday. Because we're very close to the median right now. In fact, we're right on the median, right? So this is precisely what I showed, but without, and what Sminston did, but without the 10% drawdowns. So you still have, in best case, close to $1 million. Well, let's just say you sell at the trend, you get 800,000, 650, 530, 640, 530. All right, if you don't even withdraw, and you go out to 2036 or the end of 2035, you have these numbers. So I would just encourage people, when you see all these lines on charts and people saying Bitcoin's going to zero for the 1,000th time, take comfort in the trend. I mean, this guy has been wrong so many times. It's just funny that he even speaks. There's only so much hype, I guess, people can sell, but that's what YouTube thumbnails are for, right? It's not unreasonable to say that, you could plan around this trend line. You can't plan around Plan B's trend line, but you can plan around this one. It's also, of course, super important to consider how much inflation is. One second. But people have put a lot of projections out there. There's Plan B's. You don't actually know how wacky they are until you look at them on log scale. Like you look at the tooltip. 6 million per coin for his 2020 projection, 770,000 for his 2019 projection. It's more akin to an exponential curve, which Bitcoin also does not follow, rather than a power curve, which Bitcoin does follow. And I've shown this before 1,000 times, but just for anybody who's still tuning in and hasn't seen this. If you did so Plan B stock to flows are here again. They're not scale invariant. They don't make any sense on a asset that is scale invariant like Bitcoin, where you can pick any point in the power curve and it'll be proportional to another point. But we can still do it. This also used gold and silver and all sorts of other weird exponents that were, again, made it more exponential than power. Remember, exponential is a straight line on log scale. Power is not. But here's my own stock to flow. It's just regular. It's just not. It updates every day, and it's still bad. But you can see it shows about 350K. And if you just looked from the 2016 stock to flow, all right, which is when most people can see that the power trend was really forming itself by 2016. And you don't look at any other data points, but from the beginning, the Genesis block until 2016, you get this number. So again, they seem kind of close at first glance, but they're actually not. They're 200K off, 230K. And these are good calculations, not Plan B's calculations, which are bad calculations. These are somewhat, they update every day. But if you look at the power curve, again, incredible. Yes, we're below it, but the all-time price is 120 at the moment, 120.9 thousand, 120,900. If you only looked at the data until 2016, you would get this curve, which looks nearly the same, and a 127K price. So if you can back test such a price, it might actually describe how the system is working. And it's a network growing in power. It's not growing exponentially. Again, this dotted line hasn't seen data in 9 years, soon to be 10 years. It stopped, well, for another year still, in 9 full years. It stopped calculating in December 2016. And then you just project using the regression forward. So clearly from 2016, things start to look pretty good. So good, in fact, that taking all the extra data from 2016 until today, you're only 7K off. $6,400. Way different than stock to flow projections or exponential projections or what have you. And as you go out in the future, those projections look wackier and wackier and wackier. I mean, they look great. I'd love to have Bitcoin priced at that level, but there's something different between hype and, something a little bit more math and science based. So Ukrainian friend looking at Venezuela invasion imminent. Fantastic. Like there aren't enough invasions around the world today. So by the way, out to 2050, there's your prices. Two of those seem pretty realistic. The rest don't. Basically 2033 to hit to a million. Right there. May 2033 is the projection. Then by 2050, 23 million. And again, if you want to understand how this works, what it means, what are the numbers, it's all here on my site. The key here, the proportionality of Bitcoin, is here. So I can show you doubling time, but it's not fixed like exponential curves. It's like it doesn't double every 5 years. It doubles for every 13% increase in the life of the system. Important to keep in mind. Blow my nose here. Terrible. Hello? All right. Sorry, guys. I think that should be good. I think I should be off the mute. Thank you, Dylan. Anyway. Oh, I'm on full screen, aren't I? Sorry. Sorry. 1 second. There we go. All right. So I know for those of you regular listeners, I go back to this a lot, but in my view, it's 95%. All right. The global economy is not really, nobody is thinking about Bitcoin that much. Plenty of people do at certain times, but figuring out how to manage all of this inflation still, which has been working its way through the economy and still is. Let's look at, for example, our favorite Turkey and Japan. Highly inflating currency. Right? And unlike the dollar, it's, if you had Bitcoin and you needed to spend lira, you're relatively at the top end of the curve, although still, extremely volatile, right? Okay, because it was over the summer getting close to 5 million lira per Bitcoin, but now down to 4, 3.8. Still working in other currencies. Show you Japan now. Which is slightly better in the context that it's not at the top end of the curve, similar to the dollar. Actually looks very close to the dollar. 14.2 million yen per Bitcoin, roughly. But even with a crazy currency, and I have to admit, this surprised me that it surprised me these bands weren't farther apart for Turkey when I just created this last week. You could lose 1 million lira and still be relatively safe relative to the trend as far as what you were getting before. If you wanted to transact with some Turkish lira. So it's pretty wild. And on the other end of the scale, we have gold, which Bitcoin's looking incredibly cheap in gold terms. And this to me remains the chart to look at. I've looked at these charts so much, I can't I can't imagine we go too far below the 10th percentile, right? This happened right here, 2022. But see how far away the 0th, if that's a word, percentile is. It's a long way away. Generally, it doesn't fall below the 10th. And then what James said when I talked to him the other week, probably the best advice is just be prepared either way. If you're afraid that the price might go back to 70, 80,000 in dollar terms, just be prepared for that. If it does, could spring above, could do what Raul Paul is saying. In the next 2 months. Or and it does seem like evidence based, at least on this chart. And I know the 250-day moving average looks the same. I don't have that right now, but it does seem like it probably due for a spring. But no one knows. You just have to plan for yourself. If it does go lower, what will you do? "2017 was like the cleanest top, but we still had, we went up to 1.56 on the SOPR. Just looking at this now, but we fell down to, 0.93, and then we fell down to 0.96. Just hold those levels. But again, this was a really deep pullback here, both in, of course, price, but also in the multiple, going down to 0.72, 0.66. So you need to be prepared for that as well. Saw a good post from Fred. He's posting all the time now. This one. Yeah, never financial advice from me, but he's saying if you got in at 30K, wherever you got in, right? But this might be the forest through the trees. Your perfectly timed win becomes a permanent exit from the greatest trade of your lifetime. It's a good way to look at it. All right. And I really want to get the money supply. Shoot. I want to get this more with the broad money as well, and it's coming. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Hopefully even tomorrow. There's so many currency units out there chasing so many different things. Bitcoin is such a small component that, again, if you need the cash now or whatever, I know a lot of people like to do the collateralized move. I'm not necessarily a fan of that. I think you have the potential there to roll over a lot of debt every year because usually the loans don't go out, a year or two, and then you have 10 to 15% fiat interest on top of that. Again, it's fine in a bull market, but when the market turns, that's when if you do need cash, just selling a little bit is probably the way to go based on what we are at, what type of market Bitcoin is in right now relative to the rest of fiat. But again, it has nothing to do really with this chart. I mean, fiat's going to keep printing. Bitcoin was going up when the dollar was not moving. It's true that the global monetary base was moving. It's true. But here the global monetary base was going down. And Bitcoin still went up in the last 2 years. So 90% is the relationship of the power trend itself. Let me show you guys one other thing. Thank you for sticking with me through the technical difficulties. I got my whole charts jacked up there. Anyway, shown this a few times recently. Let's show it again. All right, 30-day network revenue for Bitcoin. In dollar terms, over 30 days, never been higher than 2 billion. And again, this doesn't seem very top heavy from before. It still seems like a secular bull, but we'll see. But 2 billion a month for Bitcoin miner revenues if they would sell the block reward and the fees on a rolling 30-day period. Here's gold. Gold industry's loving life. 38 billion each month at the moment. And here's oil. Just a massive market. And this is probably understated. I just took a figure from, I think it was our world in data, which actually I need to put here in the source, but they give like a terawatt hour figure, and getting it to 1 million barrels of oil a day comes up something like, I don't know, 5% less than what I typically see. But it doesn't matter. The trend is basically the same. You can understand the difference here. The oil business is hundreds of billions of dollars a month in revenue, and Bitcoin is 2, not even. We can define this annually. And if we define it annually, the oil business is a $2 trillion a year business. Gold is, for the first time ever, getting close to $400 billion a year business. And Bitcoin is less than a $20 billion a year business. Albeit one that Wall Street has its eye on now for the I want to say for the first time, because we had CME futures start in December of 2017, but certainly since the ETFs have been rolled out almost 2 years ago, we're on a path for Wall Street adoption. Thank you, Jay. My pleasure. This keeps me sane as well. Keeps me sane as well. Or at least hope I'm keeping you guys sane. Because I know if you're in Bitcoin Twitter or Bitcoin YouTube, you're just going to see crazy thumbnails each week. Steven's the man. He's got it figured out. Prefer my rocket ships don't explode. It will be interesting if, not even if we hold the line, and I think we will, but if we sort of go into a little bit of a bear, which I don't think we're in, it will be interesting to see what it does to my multiples, to my percentiles, because we've just, every time we've gone above the 9. And I'm still not calling it. Let's see what happens at the end of the year. I actually am sympathetic to what Paul is saying. Of course, he also said that Terra Luna basically was risk free, so we know how his predictions go. But we're not fully through this 4-year cycle, so let's see. It's getting close to dinner time, my time, but I'm going to send you guys, or show you guys a couple more here. Really quickly. And tomorrow I'll try to drill down more on the money supply. I mean, I'm getting close, but it's just I have a lot of asterisks, let's say, in my money supply research compared to, people that are just pulling stuff from the Fed's website or the IMF's website. The money supply is actually much bigger than people are showing you. So again, long versus short term, hodler profit and loss. This is profit. Long and short term, both together rolled over 30 days shows us something. This last dip or this last peak was not major profit taking compared to the first two, right? Although we did have probably that day. Yeah, that was the day, July 4th, where those 84,000 coins moved. So you saw that bump. It doesn't mean that's not the top. That could be the top, but it's hard to think that would have been the top from a year ago as far as the 30-day. $100 billion of realized profit. Let's look at realized loss. These follow, after. Either after the tops or after the pukes. People tend to sell at the worst possible time. Right? And people are selling. So I don't have this as of the last couple days, but this is November 16th, fairly recent. $15 billion is our number. our max pain number over 30 days that has been reached this cycle. We can zoom in here. We can definitely see on the daily there's a lot of loss takers here. But still not hitting the records. So perhaps more pain is coming. But again, it still seems like a bull to me. Bitcoin is not exponential. This just doesn't fit the curve. Listen, that's going to be it for me today, guys. I'm going to close it with my... oh, come on. Stupid. Too many apps. I don't have it. Got some merch if you want. Again, this is not an Amazon same day process. You got to work with me a little bit, but we're going to do one batch. It's much easier if you live in Europe, but if you live in the US, we can certainly accommodate. Sorry. It's coming through. Thank you, Brendan. Appreciate it. People have been asking, so like I said, happy to comply and work with some folks here if you're interested. Something like this, I wear, a lot of these shirts on my streams. We can do different colors for you, all shapes and sizes, and it can be just generic memes as well. If I could find it. You can see I'm so... Damn. Come on. This is great technical prowess on the live stream here today. Here's the other. This one. So some more... Wait, no, that's not it. Generic memes. We can do as well. It's the same, my merch guy, good Estonian dude. Same guy that does Hodl Hodl merch. And eventually we'll get a website up, but you can pay in Bitcoin. Come on, man, refresh. But anyway, the old man yells a Bitcoin meme, from The Simpsons. There it is, if this will show up. There it is. Finally. Old man yells a Bitcoin, different things from my website, different things from the Bitcoin space. Happy to work with anybody here. Like I said, this is not Amazon same-day delivery, but over the next, couple weeks, we'll do a batch, and then eventually we'll get it all on the website, and hopefully with some other creators as well. I am on Noster at one base money, same handle everywhere, so at the number one base money. You should be able to find my NPub there as well. Info@porkopolis.io, info@porkopolis.io for any of the econ, money supply, inflation memes. Old man yells at Bitcoin. We can do it all. So just ping me. We'll do it manually this run, see how the interest goes, and then we'll eventually get a merge site set up. All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to my American friends for tuning in this morning. Definitely check out that interview with Sean Pinner, as I mentioned. Super interesting from a Brit who has fought in Ukraine. And yeah, stay free. Thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.